Welcome to chapter 12 of the book of 2Chronicles. It begins, "And it came to pass as the kingdom of Rehoboam of Judah, Benjamin, was prepared by who? It was being prepared by God. And as he was secure, he was doing things right for 3 years. For some reason, he abandoned the nomon, the astronomy. We have the law of the stars, the nomi, and nomon comes from that. He abandoned the law of the Lord and all Israel with him." So this shows that a leader can cause the people to go into sin, walking away from God. Now, some people believe that they say once saved, always saved, and of course I don't use the word saved in the Apostolic Bible because I use the word delivered, because that's what it means, to be delivered. It's over and over again in the Old Testament. It has nothing to do with this one-time thing that happens to you that's the end of all, that you're now in a position that no matter what, you're going to be assured you're going to be in heaven. Actually, it's the opposite. There are so many warnings by Jesus and Paul and others, Peter, to stay with the Lord until the end. The word is meno, to remain, abide, and abiding until the end. Now, I'm an expert at knowing that it's possible to walk away, because back in the 60s, I made a concerted effort after going through a Christian grade school, Christian high school, and a Christian university, going through the Bible all the time. Then I asked the Lord to leave me alone. I wanted to go out and do what I want to do with whoever I want, however I want, and please leave me alone. So for 13 years, I walked that path in disaster after disaster, relationships, failures, everything. It was a disaster, and that's the result. So it is possible to walk away from the Lord. You have a free will. You either can follow him or you can walk away from him. So here, Rehoboam decides to abandon the law of the Lord and all Israel with him. So in the last chapter, I mentioned the downfall of the Jews, the Jewish race, and I was thinking afterwards, well, that's sort of harsh, but here actually it confirms what I was saying. It is harsh. All Israel with him. And now, Israel mentioning here, it's talking about Rehoboam, the king of the south of Judah, and Benjamin, still called Israel. And so the ones that were with him apparently abandoned the laws. And that's unusual or strange, because all of these priests and Levites came from up in Israel and came down to worship and do the services of the temple. So the abandoning the law, of course, like I mentioned in the last chapter, this Rehoboam's mother was an idolatress from Ammon, which is in Jordan today. Ammon's the capital of Jordan today. And Milcom and Molech were the gods that she worshipped. So Rehoboam knows all about these gods, and he apparently has abandoned Yahweh. And it came to pass in the 5th year of the kingdom of Rehoboam, this would have been probably the beginning of his reign in Jerusalem, I think, Shishak, that's called Susak, king of Egypt, ascended up against Jerusalem. For they sinned before the Lord, not Egypt, but Jerusalem, the people in Jerusalem walking away from God. This Shishak is the first Pharaoh that is mentioned in the Bible by name. And it's believed this would have been around 926 BC. And the Shishak had provided protection for Jeroboam before he was king of Israel, and allowed him protection in Egypt. And so once the split happened, apparently Jeroboam became the king of Israel, and Shishak attacked the southern kingdom of Rehoboam with here 1,200 chariots. Well, that's a large army. We have armacy. We have an armament, comes from that word. And 60 Heliasine, Ipeon, 1,000 horsemen, so 60,000. Whew, that's a large army. And there was not a count, arithmos, we have arithmetic, comes from that word, of the plethus, plethora, derivative coming with him from out of Egypt. Livius, Sukiim, and Ethiopis. The Libyans, and nobody knows who the Sukim were, some African nation at the time, and Ethiopians. And they secured the fortified cities which were in Judah. Remember earlier that Rehoboam had made these fortified cities and supplied them all. So they came against these, overcome them, and then came to Jerusalem, probably either for helping Jeroboam or for the gold that was in Jerusalem that Jeroboam was over. The treasury, as we mentioned earlier, the treasury of the tribe of Joseph. So he probably told Pharaoh how much money there was or gold there was, and he tacked. And Shemaiah the prophet came to Rehoboam, prophetes, transliteration, and to the rulers of Judah, gathering together in Jerusalem from the face of Shishak. So all these people are now come to Jerusalem and to protect themselves from this attack. And he said to them, "Thus said the Lord," and this is now the Lord is saying, "You abandoned me, and I shall abandon you into the hand of Shishak." So the abandonment of God, and I abandoned me. I left me for 13 years of floundering in sin, shame, all sorts of things that were bad. But it wasn't forever. And the rulers of Israel and the king were shamed, as I was, and they said, "Well, the Lord is just," and He is just, and it's like I deserve all the things, the bad things that happened to me are all be payback. And I believe there is a payback, and it's just part of the process that God, not that He enjoys doing it, but it's probably just fair that we would, whatever man sows, that shall he also reap. And when the Lord saw that they were ashamed, the word of the Lord came to Shemaiah, saying, "They felt shame. I shall not utterly ruin them, but I will appoint them as mikron," small, micro, for deliverance, and in no way shall my rage be dripped over Jerusalem by the hand of Shishak. So he is not, he sees their repentance. I had a repentance. Fortunately, the Lord didn't drip any rage over me, but He blessed me afterwards, and I was able to spend many years in the studying the Word and translating the Apostolic Bible. After all these broken relationships, the Lord was able to heal everything, and He does that. And but here, these people, it says, "But for they will be to him," that Shishak, "for servants, and they shall know my servitude and the servitude of the kingdom of the land." Well, now I don't mind the Lord, servitude to the Lord. To me, that's the number one thing. If you can be in a servitude to the Lord, then whatever that is, and here these people had to be servitude to Shishak and the Egyptians and to the Lord, and servitude of the kingdom of the land in Rehoboam. So the people were spared. And Shishak, king of Egypt, Vasilefs is the king, against Jerusalem, and ascended, and took the Thesaurus, thesaurus, as a treasure. Thesaurus is a book that has a treasure of words, basically. They took the treasures in the economy, house, nomi, the law of the house of the Lord, and the Thesaurus in to Vasileos. He took all. So all the wonderful things that Solomon had laid up is all gone within one generation. And he took the shields of gold, Croesus, which Solomon made, and King Rehoboam made shields of brass instead of them. So all these shields left, and they were taken from these bodyguard, and so Rehoboam made them out of brass and bronze, brass. I'm not exactly sure the difference here, Brass is generally thin sheets, where bronze is a heavy casting, like a candlestick holder. You've seen them; they're real heavy. You pick them up; they're bronze. They've been cast in a mold with hot bronze going into the mold. Brass is like bronze that has been colandered and made real thin into sheets of metal, and they stamp the metal and braze it in different things and make other things with brass. Probably that's what the shields were. They were probably overlaid wood. And he placed them into the hands of the rulers, being bodyguards, guarding the gatehouse of the king. So they had this one place where they put all these shields, the bodyguards, paratrekonton. That means treko is to run, and para is by, run by. These ones run by, basically running by the king. They were guarding the gatehouse of the king. And it came to pass, when it was fit, in the entering by the king into the house of the Lord, the bodyguards went in also. They took the shields, and then they restored them unto the place of the bodyguards. That is, when they left the house of the Lord, went back, put the shields back in their place. And in his feeling ashamed, the anger in Rehoboam's feeling ashamed, the anger of the Lord was turned from him, and not unto corruption, unto the end. So this is kind of confusing here, because one place he's for the Lord, and then he goes away from the Lord, and then he's feeling ashamed, so there didn't feel the corruption until the end. For even in Judah there were good matters, and King Rehoboam grew strong in Jerusalem, and he reigned. Rehoboam was a son of 41 years in his taking reign. So 41 years old, became a king. And 17 years he reigned in Jerusalem, and 5 in Shechem, in the city which the Lord chose to name his name. There from out of all the tribes of the sons of Israel. And the name of his mother was Naamah, the Ammonitess, who we mentioned, who had these Ammonite gods. And then he acted wickedly, for he did not straighten out. I didn't do the link there. He didn't straighten out his heart, cardiac, pericardian, heart, to seek after the Lord. So again, the end negative towards him, to the Lord. And the words of Rehoboam, the first and the last, behold, are they not written in the words of Shemaiah the prophet? So apparently the Shemaiah wrote a book of the happenings of these kings that he knew. And Edo, the seer, as Ado, to trace descent, that has a genealogy, there's a word right there, genealogise, genealogy, to trace descent, and his actions, to show who the parents were, the grandfather, and so forth, and to write down what he did. And Rehoboam and Jeroboam, Rehoboam of Judah and Jeroboam of Israel, waged war all the days. And Rehoboam, the king of Judah, slept with his pateron, and was entombed in the city of David. And Abijah, his son, reigned instead of him. So now the servitude is to the Egyptians. They send them money, and later the servitude changes from Egypt, and then Shalmaneser, the Syrians. Then they send money to Nebuchadnezzar, and then after Nebuchadnezzar, they were taken over by Antiochus Epiphanes, I believe, a successor, Alexander, and he came and plundered the temple and took all sorts of money and took tribute from them. And then after him came the Romans, and the Romans did the same thing until they finally destroyed Israel. Israel is gone, like I mentioned, 2,000 years. It has come back. But now it's a strong country. And it's interesting because in the Paul mentions how the time of the Gentiles, or the King James says the Gentiles, I say the nations, the time of the nations will come to an end. And it's interesting that President Netanyahu of Israel went to the United Nations a few years and more or less declared that we're now a country, can take care of ourselves. What has happened to Israel in the past will not ever happen again. We are in control. Well, so he says, and I believe that a lot of what he says is true until the time of the beast, and I don't know when that's going to happen. But once that happens, then Israel will be destroyed as the rest of the world, almost to the point of extinction until the Prince Jesus comes and the last 10 chapters of Ezekiel take place. Getting ahead of myself, but get excited about these things. So chapter 13, we will now go into the reign of Abiah, the son of Rehoboam, king of Judah. He's the king of Judah now, Abijah. And Jeroboam is still alive, the king up in Israel. And we will find out the happenings in this period. Hope you'll join us in chapter 13, and God bless.